Let's start streaming. Okay. I believe we are live, but let me check on my channel anyway. Uh, yeah. Let's start stream. Okay. Yeah, we are live. So we're going to talk about um, Char's Counterattack, and there were a bunch of other people who might who I think most people. So today it's just me and Heraclius, and I think the reason why a lot of the others weren't able to make it is because they felt like they maybe had to watch Zeta or maybe even Double Zeta um, before coming on. I mean, do you think it's enough to watch MSG or just the first three compilation movies and come to this, or do you think somebody should have watched at least Zeta as well
You
before?
need to have watched at least Zeta, because this entire it's not just the fact that Char is that there's all this stuff that Char does in the intervening 7 years or 13 years from the original Gundam to Char's Counterattack. It's the fact that Zeta Gundam is where Tomino introduces the idea of he expands on the idea of new types and the idea that humans have to be moved off of Earth. That Earth itself is dying from the human population there. This, if you jump into Char's Counterattack from MSG, this is absolutely jumped on you. You have no prior, and it's like you're just sort of left scratching your head. Nothing outside of the central Amuro-Shaw conflict, everything's going to feel completely out of the blue. Now, that said, once you've seen Zeta Gundam, you can completely skip Double Zeta, and a lot of people do, because to be frank and to be fair, basically none of the characters in Double Zeta end up coming up again. All you need to know is, like, Haman lost, that iteration of Neo Zeon lost. Which is why a lot of people end up skipping Double Zeta Gundam overall, because it's a little bit of a hard sell. It's a different show. A lot of people don't like that comedic tone that it tried to go for, and so they can, if they so desire, end up skipping that and go directly to Shaw's Counterattack, which is generally considered generally very well considered, but there are some people who object to it, who say that it has pacing issues, which I don't know. Was that a bother for you, student, when you were watching it?
When I was watching Double Zeta, no, no.
No, Shaw's Counterattack. Shaw's
Oh,
Counterattack.
Charles Carter. I I mean, it was mostly an action movie, and it delivered on the action.
Hmm.
It didn't really waste that much time on anything else,
No.
um, and it didn't feel slow at all. I think
Hmm.
it's 1 hour and 59 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. Um,
Yes.
but it didn't feel like 2 hours. It felt more like an hour, really.
Hmm.
Um, Pacing, I didn't. I guess I didn't really feel pacing issues, but another complaint, which is kind of connected to this, is that the story starts. Um,
In medias
yeah,
res.
yeah,
Yeah.
in the middle of the story, or other. Let's how do you say that? We don't get to see the build up to
Yeah.
Char's plan to drop asteroids or whatever. It just happened.
Yeah, and I looked at that Beltorchka's Children manga because I was curious if there was more buildup in that, but no, there wasn't at all. So I can only take that to mean that that novel series is the same in sort of starting in medias res. I mean, that one has a little more stuff going on in terms of the battle to stop Shaw's forces dropping a smaller asteroid slash colony Lhasa, Tibet. But that's about it.
Yeah, I guess it depends on how straightforward adaptation of the novels it is, but I believe it is pretty straightforward.
Mhm.
So, to explain briefly what this novel slash manga called Beltorchika's Children is, it's
It's an alternate telling. That's basically what it is. It's an alternate telling. Beltorchika's still Amuro's girlfriend. Rather than the people saving, rather than collective wills saving the Earth from an asteroid, it's partially Amuro's unborn child. Shit like that. There's a couple things that are expanded on slightly, but most of it is word for word the same as this movie.
yeah. So apparently that was Beltorchika's Children was supposed to be the original script for the movie, but Sunrise didn't like it. But Tomino liked it enough to um, basically just release it as a novel and a manga. But apparently there's another set of novels. Um,
Yeah, High Streamer, which are like the original concept that he was just sort of like throwing around, as I understand it. It's harder to understand this stuff when you don't have this knowledge of Japanese, and only a little bit of this stuff just sort of ends up flowing through the language gateway.
yes, only the Beltorchica manga has been translated. I think it's just 30 chapters or something. But the
Yeah.
novels and the high streamer novels have not been. And I don't think that there's a high streamer manga anyway. So I guess going back to what you were talking about earlier, um, I kind of feel like a lot of people who did watch Zeta, though, had complaints about Char's character. Like part of what I said that what you said that the story starts in media res. Part of the
Hmm.
complaint that people have about that is that they kind of can't. They feel like there's an important part which has been omitted, showing um,
The rise of Char's Neo Zeon.
yeah, but why did he suddenly become a villain? Because people had kind of felt like in Zeta, okay, now he's one of the good guys.
Yes. Yes, in Zeta Gundam, I pointed this out to someone who was sort of shitting on Zeta Gundam a little and saying Shaw's always been a sociopath. Uh, I believe in terms of like most time on screen, Shaw gets the most time on screen in Zeta Gundam as this Quattrobagina fellow. And yeah, Shaw in that show is quite a bit different. He still has this attitude of trying to escape from reality a little. He doesn't want to take on the mantle of Shaw as Nabal or Castle Daikun. He feels he'd rather just be a regular pilot, and he slowly gets pulled into doing other things by essentially the insistence of his friends. He has surprisingly a actually rather respectful and somewhat close relationship with Amuro. There's no real grudge that seems to be between them, at least on the surface. And then you jump to Shaw's counterattack, and all of a sudden Shaw's just going, "Remember the the pain that you caused when you killed Lala." And it's like, geez, when he talked with Amuro in the elevator at Zeta, he never talked like this. He was like trying, even when Amuro brought up Lala, he did make a big deal. What is this about? And there are two possible explanations. One, you can take the view that Char is almost this new character from show to show. He does make pretty huge jumps from show to show. In Mobile Suit Gundam, he's just a sociopath. In Zeta Gundam, he's really this polite and pretty good father figure and advice giver to a whole bunch of people, while at the same time having a bit of an avoidant personality, you might say himself, not wanting to take on all the responsibility. And then Char's counterattack, he's just sort of raging and seething. Now, the best explanation for why this is just that everything from Zeta Gundam to Double Zeta Gundam onwards was so depressing, so anger inducing, and he was watching a little bit of it from the sidelines in Double Zeta, that he was just pissed off at the whole Earth sphere, pissed off at everyone involved, which, to be fair, is exactly how Judo feels at the end of Double Zeta. The Federation have been such pricks, have surrendered to Neo Zeon so much, have worked to undermine the AUG's ideals, that he just flat out leaves for Jupiter, never to never come back, at least not in any reasonable space of time. Uh Shaw in this, yeah, uh, Shaw's basically being pushed forward in this by two dual goals. One, there's the de facto goal of he wants humanity forced off of Earth. He feels like everything else has been tried. Uh, Now it's time to lob an asteroid at Earth and literally make it so that there is no choice. And the movie again shows that the Federation is all too willing to give in. After dropping a rock already on Tibet, he's able to just buy Axis for from some gold and go, no, really, we just want a home for our people. We wouldn't think of dropping another rock on Earth. And the Federation officials all gullibly lap it up. And some people have some absolute idiots have considered this bad writing. No, that scene is absolutely brilliant writing. You have these officials. One, they talk a little bit about how there's been some setup behind the scenes, even though Shaw is kind of dismissive of it. But two, you get some of these officials literally talk about what a privilege it is to like be able to negotiate with this thing with Shaw in person, and to be able to speak with Shaw himself. You can tell all these Federation officials have been completely taken in by the myth of Shaw, and like, if this deal goes through, this will secure their place in history, and each and every one of them. And you see this often enough in like real life diplomacy or whatever, where some diplomat will agree to a deal that's maybe not likely to stick, but if it does, it'll be such a glorious thing that's
I mean, I guess
they'll have their name attached to.
I guess the problem that people have is that so Char has already dropped an asteroid. So why are you giving him another asteroid?
From their well, what Shaw was saying was that I'm doing this because there is no place for the Space Noid refugees. I want a place for the Space Noid refugees. That's Axis. And he literally gives a speech about Sweetwater was the only place that was built by the Federation for Refugees, and it's not enough. So, from the perspective of everyone else, this has been Shaw's goal the whole time, to get Axis for purpose of the Space Noids, for purpose of Space Noid refugees. Of course, Shaw is lying through his teeth. He even says after that speech, as he's taking off his little cloak, I feel like a clown. And he does. He doesn't like doing that shit. Like, in the little negotiations with the guys, he like shows up, says nothing, and then when it's done, he starts walking away. He can't stand that sort of public relations stuff. He does feel like a marionette.
I mean, is he actually in charge, or is he like the, I guess, the top representative, or just a military guy for uh, the new Neo Zeon?
That's an interesting question. I'd say he's definitely the guy in charge in terms of pushing ideas. Like, no one else in that organization would have said, yeah, what we need to do, drop asteroid on Earth, cause a nuclear winter. Only Char was the type of person who would say that. That said, he is definitely a more hands-off leader. He lets Nanai coordinate a lot of the forces and whatnot. Nanai actually seems to be under the mistaken belief that that once this is all over, her and Shaw will like retire to the countryside or something like that. Even as Shaw is going around in his speeches and saying, "Well, once this is all over, I'll reunite with my father Xeon." Like he very, very obviously has a death wish, and this whole dropping the asteroid thing is like a suicide pact, and also an excuse to fight Amuro. In a way, this is like Shaw is acting as like the most elaborate and destructive school shooter in history.
So, speaking of Nanai, so she's one of the new characters, I think, including Gyune, Quest, Hathaway, and I think one of the complaints which people had is that there isn't any time. This is not a TV series, so there isn't any time to introduce new characters and develop them. So, wouldn't it have been better to have all the characters like Kai or Sailor, rather than these new characters, which I think some people in their reviews said that they felt like they just, especially Quest, people especially hated Quest, that she took too
Yeah,
much space, too much screen time. I don't know.
yeah. Quest is set up basically. One, she's Quest is to be set up at. I'd say she's actually pretty pivotal, or at least used pretty pivotally, and focused on a fair bit in this movie. And a lot of people don't like her because she is, well, frankly, bratty. I think her worst outburst is, well, when she's talking with Chan, Amuro's girlfriend, and she flat out goes like, "Why are you getting in the way of me getting closer to Amuro?" And just like this ridiculous thing of like a 13-year-old lusting after a much older man, which I mean, when you have famous figures like Amuro and Char, sure that happens, but they're usually like not that explicit. They're usually not that upfront about it.
Hmm.
Uh, Quest, you have to consider her background. When they show her, like, she's sort of been hanging around with this bunch of hippies. The Beltorchika's Children manga, they expand on those people a little, show that they're basically talking about religions and new types and shit like that. They actually end up being murdered by the Federation forces in that manga. Here they just sort of like accuse them of kidnapping and beat them down, and then bring Quest back to her mother. And her mother is an absolute shrew. There's no other way of putting it. You only see a couple scenes of her, but she's does everything to like take out her anger on Quest.
And if
Uh,
I'm not mistaken, it's not actually her real mother, right? It's a stepmother or something.
yeah, I think so. Yeah, they mentioned that. It's gone through real quick, but yeah, that's correct. And then also, you have her father, who is the diplomat, and sort of better than her mother, but he's also this two-faced wimp. And that's part of his job of being a diplomat. And Quest really despises that as well. And so you have this idealistic young girl. Her mother and father figures, from her perspective, are just sort of useless. She's been a little overspoiled, as she's like the daughter of this very rich and reasonably powerful official, and so she just wants to break out of that. And she's naturally idealistic in terms of all the concept of new types and yada yada, uh, especially as contrast to her father. So she naturally they have like one scene where she's talking with Hathaway, and they're basically talking politics, and she, of course, takes the more extreme positions that people will evolve. Uh, she very much is sort of like supposed to be like this is what happens when you like introduce a child to these ideals and beliefs. There's sort of like supposed to be some level of understanding that she only halfway gets it, but she doesn't have the wisdom yet to understand both how difficult it is and how maybe this won't necessarily change everything. She doesn't have that, or to notice when other people are manipulating her or anything like that. She has the intelligence to talk about this stuff at her age, but she doesn't have the wisdom to make good judgments about it. And the result is she is taken completely for a ride. She, of course, the moment she comes into contact with Char, she sides with him more and immediately saves Char's bacon, which I think is actually representative of the fact that Char is doing this as sort of like a suicide pact and thing to fight with Amuro. Like, Amuro, Char literally reaches out with his mind. Amuro, I'm doing something incredibly wicked. If you're nearby, hear my presence. And then gets into this fist fight with Amuro, and Amuro was a second away from shooting Char and probably killing him. And it's impulsive little Quest that intervenes and prevents this. It's really something.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I personally found Hathaway to be more annoying than Quest. I mean, it's not like we have had bratty characters before.
No, no.
I guess the older cast, they they also kind of used to be a little bit bratty back in MSG, but now
Sure.
how old are they anyway? I think late 20s at least. I would say Amuro.
Yeah, Amuro is late 20s, as is Bright's like barely gone into the 30s. Yeah, Shaw's 29 or something like that. Actually, no, Shaw would be 33. Because he's 20 in the original Gundam, and this is like UC 0079, 0080 to 0093.
I see. Mm-hmm. So, why do you think Chai is hated so much in this movie? Is it just because of his character change and people not understanding?
Well,
Hmm.
it's interesting how this has gone through waves. Like when I was first getting into Gundam, there was a lot of sympathy with Char and a lot of sympathy with him in this movie. And I think one of the turning points was actually a very nice article by Ghost Lightning, where he discussed like his most recent watch through of Char's Counterattack. Ghost Lightning, the We Remember Love blog, and he made the point that basically, he looked through this movie, and the more that he watched it, he realized Char in this movie is just sort of like this pathetic figure that is lashing out of the world, that has a death wish, and he thought it was hard to see whether or not he even believed in this stuff about taking humanity to the next level and forcing them into space as new types, because he completely sabotages himself by throwing the technical data to make a brand new Gundam at the Federation. And there's something to be said for that. But my impression is that Shaw does want to. He's still just as interested in that being successful as he is fighting Amuro, I think. It's hard to say. He comes across as a man who is so fed up, so tired. Like there's that one scene where he's sitting around with Nanai, and he uh, takes himself into this hug with Nanai, and he's sort of like resting his head in her bosom. And Nanai asks, "Have you gotten tired of upholding the mantle of Casval Daikun?" He's like, "Yeah, pretty much." This is someone who's really tired of entirely with his life. Someone who, on the one hand, is tired with dealing with everyone around him. He's tired with the corruption and failure to act he sees all the time. And he's not the type of person that can just fly away to Jupiter or anything like that, or leave it behind. So that's why he has this like ridiculous idea to go along that's really quite evil. Like they don't go over it too much, but his plan is literally to drop this asteroid, and this asteroid is a lot larger than your standard colony. They talk about this is going to be enough to send Earth into a nuclear winter and really screw up the planet, like for good. Kill however many millions. They keep cutting back to Bright's wife and children in the middle of this, because they're literally in the firing line. If they fail at this, they're basically dead. And it really is this crazy idea. And when he's talking about with it, like with Quest in the car, he goes like, "Oh, I'm just
Um,
I'm just planning to give Earth a little rest." It's like, ugh.
So, Justin in the chat is asking whether we have seen the Hathaway movie.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And he says that he's confused about that movie because they never mention Hathaway killing Chan, Amuro's girlfriend.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could say it's not necessarily important in that. I mean, one, I don't think anyone knew, and if they did, it would have covered up on Hathaway's part.
From what
Two is
from what I understand, I think that it's a continuity from probably Beltorchica's children or something else. So that's why.
no.
No, it's not because of
Well,
that. No. Okay.
Well, I mean, you could say that has something to do with it, because in Beltorchka's children, it's not actually him that ends up killing Chan. In fact, the pilot of the Wigazy, which in that case is Beltorchka, does not die. He's actually the one to pull the trigger on Quest in that in that version, which is a little ironic considering he kills Chan for killing Quest in this version.
Yeah, I'm
But
pretty sure that I'm pretty
it's one
sure
of
that
those things
yeah.
where even if you say like it's this version, the Char's Counterattack version versus the Beltorchika's Children version, what what weighed more heavily on Hathaway as a person is Quest's death, rather than actually the death of Chan and murdering Chan. I mean, who knows? Maybe in the next movie they'll discuss a little uh something of him of the fallout of him having killed Chan in battle being, but I guess you could just say it's not as big a deal, so the movie doesn't go over that.
Yeah,
And that movie has other things to do as well.
yeah, I see. It's asking whether it has been retconned. I guess it kind of has been, right?
No, I mean, the thing is, like, it's not like Universal Century Gundam is ever going over tons of its own stuff. Like, there's people have tried to argue that because of the Zeta compilation movies that retcon Double Zeta in its entirety. I mean, I generally disagree. I mean, the other thing is the Japanese don't nearly have as strong a concept of canon as we do. There's much more of an idea of just iteration to iteration, and it just sort of lines up. Because, I mean, canon is, of course, a biblical word. It refers to the biblical canon.
So on the wiki it says alternate endings for Quest Pariah. So in Char's Counterattack, Beltorchika's Children, um, blah blah blah. So in the final battle, Quest in her Alpha Azeru fought against Amuro in the RH-93 V2 High V Gundam.
I knew. Yeah.
Yeah, I see. When Gundam blocked and dodged, when Amuro blocked and dodged all of her attacks, she went into hysteria and called for Char. When she intercepted the duel between Amuro and Char, who was in the MSN 042 Nightingale, she was killed. She was killed when Hathaway. So it's Hathaway um,
Yes.
who kills her. This event caused Hathaway to form the anti-Federation terrorist group MAFT later in Mobile Suit Gundam, Hathaway's Flash. So, is that Hathaway's Flash? Has that got to do something with the movie, or is that something
Yeah,
else?
Hathaway's Flash is it's a series of novels that very recently has gotten a movie adaptation just this year. Takes place UC 105. Yeah, it's basically Hathaway going down this kind of dark, self-destructive path. I guess you could say a lot like Shaw. With Hathaway, it's more like he's trying to force himself into something he's not, which is like being a terrorist, and he doesn't quite have the nerves or that he should. Like most of the Hathaway movie involves him like trying to save this civilian that he really shouldn't be wasting his time with. He's got better things to do, but he's sentimental like that. He's not like Shaw.
I see. So he says that he has never heard of Beltorchika Stirland. Yeah. So
Yeah, yeah, it's just an alternate novel. There's a manga adaptation. Doesn't change around tons. It's just like supposedly, as students said, was like the original script idea. It's mainly known because there's like alternate designs for the new Gundam and Sazabi, the Hainu and the Nightingale, which of course have gotten their own model kits and stuff like that in recent years. People like those designs, and that's like the main reason people know about it.
I see. I see. Um. Yeah. So Um, earlier you mentioned that Char helped the other side, so like it doesn't make any sense. Like
Hmm.
so the way that he helped the other side was by sharing data on the psycho frame.
Yes.
What what's the psycho frame?
The Psycho Frame, this has gone over, like, I can see how some might miss this. It's like the Psychomia system from like the Psycho Gundam. That's literally why it was called the Psycho Gundam. And that allowed like a new type to literally somewhat pilot it from afar, like move it generally. Basically, the whole point of the Psychomia system is that it allows a new type pilot to somewhat move the mobile suit with their mind. Not completely, but a lot of it. And on top of that, you also have funnels and stuff like that. The fin funnels, like just literally these remote weapon, uh, new type weapons. And that's able to be implemented on the new Gundam because that's data is leaked over to Amuro. I think this is actually the first Federation mobile suit ever to have a fin funnel system. That was basically a staple of Xeon most of the ways.
I see. I see. By the way, I believe that I found so just in the chat, I found his channel by watching a review of Char's Counterattack. Yeah, it was nice. And what has the psycho frame got to do with that T-shaped thing, which Chan uh, keeps with her? Um,
Yeah, they mention it's like a blink and you'll miss it 2 second scene where they say like, oh, that T is the like Psi Commu prototype or something like that. It's really weird. And then like she's just sort of like carries it around. And then after Chan dies, the thing gets like scattered to the wind in space. And it sort of like helps resonate with the wills later in order to push back the asteroid. It's sort of like an unnecessary inclusion and does weird some people out, which is understandable. They could have literally just had it where new type focus of wills without this little T supposedly helping out. It is just sort of weird.
Justin in the chat says, I think he mentioned he gave, so he, I think he's talking about Char. Char gave the feds no Gundam, so him and Amuro could have a fair fight and
Yeah, I
see
don't.
and see.
Yes.
Yeah, you don't think that's so? Justin is saying that it's he thinks that it's more of a honor kind
Oh,
of thing.
yes. It is completely an honor type thing, and it is completely a thing where I don't think he literally gave him the new Gundam. I think he just gave him the data to give them that to create something like that. But yeah, it is something of an honor thing. Uh, one of Char's last lines before he gets very unceremonially pushed out of the Sazabi is, "Nanai, don't interfere in a contest between men." And then he's just sort of shoved into the asteroid, and his escape pod goes flying. Uh, in some ways, it's a little anticlimactic. The end of that, Shaw just loses so spectacularly.
Yeah, I kind of felt like Amuro was just a lot stronger than Cha.
Hmm.
That I don't know, but it's because of his new type powers or because he has a better mech. Maybe both of them. Maybe Char's new type powers are not as strong. Um, let's see. Yeah, I mean, I generally though I must say I found Char's character arc to be more interesting than Amuro's because,
Hmm.
for example, Char's motivations change first from basically a personal revenge, or at least that's how it looked like
Yeah.
in MSG, to um, something I guess more ideological. But was it really about that, or was it about Lala in the end? Because like the earlier you mentioned, before we started recording, you mentioned that quote, which I believe is Char's last line about, Lala could have been a mother to me. I think that,
Yes.
and
That is an absolutely infamous line, much talked about.
so people make fun of Cha a lot for that too. Like, okay, so you were nearly going to destroy the world just because of that. I mean, because you had mommy issues or something.
Yeah, one of the things, if you look into it, we talked in Zeta about this, in the Zeta discussion about this, this dojin that was like, just them, that was like this set of interviews with Tomino, Hideki Anno, and a couple, Inoue, and a couple other major people on Char's Counterattack, and one of the things Tomino makes quite clear in that is he very, like, Char is looking for a mommy GF essentially. That is what he's looking for. Anno is not the only one to be quite the Freudian. Tomino is that way as well.
Yeah.
And the he explicitly says that, like, Tomino, uh, they explicitly have it where Quest says that they say that Quest was looking for a father figure, and so she was looking for that in Amuro, and then later Char. You see some of the same stuff where, actually, with Emma, where she where she says to Bright that she thinks Camille is trying to look for a mother figure in her, and
Yeah,
that's
Emma
inappropriate.
from Zeta, yeah. And I think that scene between Amuro and Nanai, where so not Amuro, sorry, Cha and Nanai, and where you know Cha is having a drink and then he embraces Nanai. I think in that one it did look a bit like. I don't know, a mother and a child, sort of.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, yeah, and that's quite intentional there. Yes.
yeah, kind of like Mother Mary and Jesus or something, like a statue like that. Speaking of, so Justin has an off-topic thing to say, which is, what do you guys think about the fan theory that Uso, the protagonist of Victory Gundam, is the grandson of Cha?
I've only seen Victory up until like episode 13. It's like the one show. I mean, my impression based off of watching that much is it's probably a fan theory with only the most baseline of evidence. I could be wrong. There could be more evidence for it,
Yeah, I
but
mean, because I also heard it. I also heard people say that um, that even though it's not shown here, you can see it in Beltorchka's children that Nanai, or the other character who is very similar to
no, no,
Nanai.
no.
Uh,
Yeah, they give them different names for some reason. They're the exact same characters. They look the same way, but they give them different names. I don't know why.
yeah, let's just call her Nanai, because most people have just watched the movies. Anyway, Nana is apparently pregnant with Char's child, and apparently,
I didn't see that in the manga. Maybe it
no,
is. I don't
maybe I
know.
don't know. Okay. Well, apparently, so that's why the Char has a grandson who would be the protagonist in Victory. Speaking of Victory Gundam, so I haven't seen Victory Gundam, but I watched the UC retrospective
Hmm.
video which Bio Gundam did. Unfortunately, he's not there today, so we can't ask him. But
Uh-huh.
he mentioned, he and the other person on that chat mentioned that there was some themes about mothers and matriarchy or something in Victory Gundam.
Yeah. Because it's literally an evil matriarchy that's taking over the world in that. And they are, like, completely evil. They are the most evil faction Gundam had ever had. To that point, they're like just bomb away cities. That was actually sort of one of the issues I had with that show. Just like watching the first 13 episodes of the show was that they weren't interesting as an enemy faction, at least at that point.
I mean,
And
they were
the
even worse
heroes
than
didn't have,
Titans, I guess.
huh?
Were they even worse than the Titans?
The Titans I like. Yeah, they're probably worse than the Titans overall. They like to guillotine people. I mean, the Titans love gassing people, but they always have this excuse of like the Titans feel a lot more professional compared to Zanskare. Like I got the impression that Zanskare almost reveled in it at times. Maybe that's just me.
Yeah, I see. The reason why I brought it up is because I thought maybe there was some thematic connection with I don't know, Amuro and
Yeah.
Char, but have wanting a Mama GF, but no, it doesn't sound like
No,
it.
no,
So
no, not really.
Justin says that he has seen Victory Gundam, and besides from the sabotage from Tomino, it's a decent show. I think Justin mentioned in his video that he thought that Tomino sabotaged Victory purposefully because Sunrise was bought by.
Yeah, Sunrise was being screwy with him. Literally, what's the first episode of the show is supposed to be the fourth episode of the show, and then there's like a rewind. Um, it's very confusing either way, no matter which way you start with the show. So it's like you're screwed either way. Uh, there's that, and there's all sorts of weird lol Tomino moments in that show. It's like Uso is like just drifting around. He gets his parachute like undone by this mobile suit, and so he like gloms onto the mobile suit, gets inside, and rather than being thankful or like chewing him out a little, he starts assaulting this soldier that's like twice his age and trying to throw him out of the mobile suit. Or there's this other scene that bugged the hell out of me, where there's this Hollow blows a bubble, and the bubble is a flashback for Uso. And you go, well, what the hell is going on? Is this in Uso's mind? Is Hollow playing back a memory of Uso that it's recorded? What the hell is going on? Uh,
Yeah,
never explained. It just
yeah.
happens, and then it's gone.
So Justin says that Tomino put character that's in episode previews. Okay, he's really fucking with the show then.
Yes.
So I guess for given that I mean this is all about Char, this movie for the most part. So and I think isn't there another series as well which is about Char called The Origin or something?
Yeah, Gundam the Origin is it's basically a manga readaptation of the original Gundam, being done by Yoshikazu Yasuhiko, who is the original character designer for Gundam and all that. And that manga's been done for a long time. And Sunrise decided to do a series of movies which are adaptations of basically just Char's part and Char's backstory in that. I kind of don't like and don't accept a lot of the stuff in there. Not that everything's horrible. I like the stuff with Zeon Daikun, but they completely flanderize characters like Garma or Degwin Zabi. Not Degwin, Dozel Zabi. They make them into absolute parodies of their real selves. It's kind of hard to take a lot of it seriously in that regard.
I see. I just mentioned it because I wanted to ask whether, if, for somebody who likes to know more about Char's character because of CCA, whether it might be worth checking out The
Yeah,
Origin.
it's definitely. I mean, if only the first episode is worth checking out, because it really expands on who is this Zeon Daikun. Takes an absolutely different view of him than you is the traditional view of him. It's actually a radically different view, but I'm rather okay with that.
Was
But you
Tomino
do have
involved?
to.
Yeah.
No, not at all.
Mm.
So I do sort of have that view of like it's interesting, but it is essentially fanfic. But that's my view.
I see. So, I've heard this theory that maybe Char never died in CCA, and the Char clone in
Unicorn.
yeah, Unicorn is Char. Do you believe that, or do you think
What?
no? You don't believe
What?
that.
This is the first time I've heard that. That's
No,
retarded.
I see. I see. Uh,
Yeah, that's stupid. Yeah. There is like as far as how that guy got cloned, the idea is that he got cloned off of like the memories from the Sazabi system, the Psychomia system from the Sazabi. That is part of it, but yeah, the idea is that it was just like some random cyber new type that they already had that they ended up like enhancing and sort of taking on the memories of. And as you can imagine, that can be kind of overwhelming for the person. And whoever that person was, basically decided that from then on he was going to become like this vessel for both Char's ideals and more the ideals of Neo Zeon.
yeah, I guess the reason why people mention that quote, that last quote about Lala to disparage Shah, is because it sort of reduces Shah's ideals and his motivations to just psychological issues. Like,
Yes.
yeah, but I mean, do you buy that, or I mean that the ideals were just bullshit and or look, if he really believed in the ideals, he wouldn't have shared the data for the psycho frame.
Yeah. So, yes. Yeah. I don't know. Like, I disagree that he never believed it. Let's put it that way. Because in Zeta Gundam, Char basically has everything together for the most part. He's still evading responsibility, but he knows what he's doing, and he's actually generally fairly responsible in that show. And all this stuff about getting mankind off of Earth is very, very important to him. And it's also like, as I pointed out before, the show sets it up as like this is the only legitimate position.
Um,
Literally every faction in Zeta Gundam turns out to be in favor of this.
so Justin in the chat says that he thinks that Char was a unicorn. I mean, why
Uh,
don't you explain us
there's
yeah.
like a scene at the very, very, very end of Unicorn where it's like Char's spirit brings up absorbs the last bit of his spirit that was left behind on Full Frontal. I mean that's it's not like Shaw himself is really in Unicorn or anything like that. I guess you could just say he's gone to New Type
Heaven.
Heaven or New Type Ghosts because like yeah, ghosts are a real thing in Gundam. Yeah, Lala is haunted. We haven't gone over this, but Lala is literally haunting Amuro and Shaw's dreams. Both of them. I mean, maybe that's the reason why all of a sudden, uh, uh Shaw is making such a big deal of it just because Lala has decided to start being a bitch recently.
So I mean, yeah, another thing which got mentioned in a few reviews regarding Lala's apparition was that Lala says that Chai is pure.
Mhm.
What do you think she meant by that?
Yeah, it shows up in. I think what she means by that is he's sort of like almost pure raw emotions, you might say. Uh, so, someone like Char, he'll occasionally tell these whoppers of lies Like I have never betrayed anyone in my entire life. Or he tells a similar whopper in this where he goes, I'm not trying to save the world, change the world. And it's like, okay. Uh, but I feel like in some ways lying does bother him. Or like he can't stand all the politician stuff, which is basically just lying. He seems to be like incredibly intense and the type of person that is pure in sort of like, I guess you say, intensity of his emotions and just being able to express himself. He can't he almost can't restrain himself at times, especially in this movie. And I think that's sort of what Lala's getting at when she says that he's pure. I guess you could say that also makes him like easy to read, and she probably takes some amount of pleasure in that.
Hmm. Yeah, I guess we can't just trust Lala. Um. So yeah, I mean, I think one of the reviews which I watched, I think it was a podcast, and maybe they were just joking, but they said that literally every line uh, by Char in this movie is a lie. I wouldn't go that far. Uh, uh,
It's yeah, I wouldn't go that far, but if we say 50%, probably.
mhm.
Yeah, he is like using absolutely everyone to just get at his pure goal of like fight Amuro, die in battle. Like he like he's using Nanai, claiming that 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 he'll settle down after this. He's using Quest, obviously. I guess he's just sort of manipulating Guinea around, but admittedly, he's not particularly lying to him because he literally does not have an interest in Quest. There's this wonderful line where Quest like goes up to Char, and she goes, "Captain, am I a substitute for for Lala?" Uh, and Char goes, "No. Well, wait. Why would that bother you?" It's just so arrogant and in his own mind that he doesn't give a crap. But he's just like skilled enough to play it off, and she keeps, and it doesn't bother Quest, and he says all the right things to her. It's really something.
So one of the things which also came up, in many of the reviews which were trying to hype up Char's counterattack is that they kept on saying that this is a movie about the one of the greatest rivalries in anime, or if not that, the end
Mhm.
of the greatest rivalry in anime. Would you agree
Hmm.
with that? I mean, what's that about?
Well, yeah, that's sort of like a tagline people go with. Uh, it is like, yeah, definitely a legendary rivalry, if only because it's built up over two different series and then this. The fact that you have the context of Zeta, I think, adds to the rivalry because these characters were once somewhat close to one another, once to the point where they could talk with one another reasonably over a glass of whiskey. And there was always that tension there, but they did have some amount of mutual trust and faith in one another, and now that's just all gone. Now they just like it's turned to petty, vindictive hatred, at least somewhat on Char's part.
Yeah, but like
Well, Amuro too. Amuro is like Amuro now is like basically where Sayla is at the end of Mobile Suit Gundam, where he's like you're completely lost. You're completely irredeemable. Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, even in Zeta, there weren't that many scenes with Amuro and Cha
No.
together. So, mm, I mean, go on, sorry.
Yeah, that's a fair enough point. Uh, I mean, you can always make the claim that there are greater anime rivalries that have built up over more actual screen time. I actually this is just me, but I wasn't personally that strongly moved by their rivalry in Mobile Suit Gundam. It always came across like Char was just making a big deal about this while Amuro was just trying to survive. It felt a little one-sided. Admittedly, you have like at the start Amuro like is like trying to become like Char and show that he's just as powerful, and that's and when Bright makes those comments about like I thought you could become someone like Shaw, that's when Amuro lights up and decides to get in the Gundam again.
Yeah, because I guess when I think of like quote unquote greatest anime rivalries or whatever, I think of stuff like say Rikishi and Joe in
Hmm.
Ashirano Joe,
Yeah.
or maybe Goku and Vegeta, maybe, or
Hmm.
maybe L and Light Yagami. And in all those cases, like I feel like there's a lot of more time where the characters talk to each other or something.
Right.
Yeah.
It's,
Mm.
it's fair, but it's a mistake to say that time is the only measure. I haven't watched Death Note in a while, so I couldn't comment on that. But on whether that's better, this is better or that's better. But uh, and I haven't seen Ashtana Joe, but my impression would be that that's probably a better rivalry than this. But I'd still say this is quite a good rivalry, and the fact that they literally just by the end are getting into this brutal fist fight with their mechs is just perfect, and sort of shows like the petty like anger on both sides here, where they're just letting it out at one. It's great.
So yeah, Justin is saying, what about Gon and Hisoka in Hunter x Hunter?
And
Um,
not seeing Hunter X Hunter's
yes, neither
case.
have I, but I think probably the best one is Young Wenli and Reinhardt in Legend of the Galactic Heroes. At least that's my favorite one. And I guess in that one too, they don't actually speak to each other. So
No,
yeah,
no, it's
yeah.
very much by reputation. I think there's one scene ever where they talk, and that's it.
Yeah, but I guess in that case, like you get the feeling that their
Well, yeah,
disagreement is about. Yeah, sorry, go on. What is it?
their disagreement is somewhat about ideals, but there's also they sort of know each other intimately by reputation and also by what they do on the battlefield, and so sort of like by facing each other in battle many times, or at least knowing of each other's battles, they actually come to understand one another pretty well.
Yeah, yeah. I guess the difference here is that the battle is a lot more hands-on. Like,
Yeah.
uh, so ink penification in the chat says Cha, the anti-spoiled brat brigade. Is he?
Yeah, he's referencing this scene from Mobile Suit Gundam, the original, uh, where where Garma's going in his speech. Why did Garma have to die? And Char says because he was a spoiled brat.
Yeah. So Justin says to check out Hunter x Hunter because it's a good
Yeah,
shonen manga by
yeah,
the creator of Yu Yu Hakusho. Apparently.
yeah.
Yeah.
I know it's very well thought of.
Yeah. I mean,
Uh,
yeah. Good.
But yeah, diverting back to Char's Counterattack, like, I don't know about you, but the action scenes, these are the best action scenes that Tomino probably ever does. I'm going to say, like, the action is very frenetic, and there's not like when you look at the mobile suits up close, there's not as much detail, nearly as much detail, as is done with Gundam Unicorn, which is more recent. But everything just mm, moves so fast and so agile in this way that's very believable for space. It all feels right, and it all feels like very intense. In some ways, it feels like, I don't know, you might say a Michael Bay Transformers movie, but good.
Yeah, if I had any problem with the animation or art style or anything, like I posted a picture and I'm also showing it on the screen. It's from just a random screenshot that I got from the movie, and
Mhm.
if you will notice it, like if you zoom in,
Yeah.
the eyes are all dots and lines. Like as soon as the camera moves away from the characters, the eyes and
Yes.
mouths become just dots. I don't know if you noticed that too when watching.
Yeah. Yeah. That's Yeah, that's something that's more common with TV anime, but you don't generally see that with movies. Like something like this would have been completely normal for TV anime because, like, when you see that, you're not going to be able to see those eyes like back on like 480 or 360p or usually 240p back in the day. But when it was blown up on a movie screen, people were definitely going to be able to see that. Yeah.
And this was made for a movie screen, right? I believe.
Yes, yeah, this was released in theaters in Japan.
Yeah, I think it's the first quote unquote Gundam movie if you exclude the
And
compilation movies. I guess. Yeah.
yeah, and still to this day the best. Although admittedly it doesn't have much competition in that regard.
Yeah, I think there was that Hathaway movie recently, but yeah, I haven't heard
Oh
that.
yeah, that's pretty good. It's like a movie slash OVA slash whatever. Call it what you want.
Yeah. Yeah. Another thing to mention, I guess. Earlier you mentioned how Ano is also into mommy issue stuff. So if I'm not mistaken,
No,
Ano.
Tomino.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, Ano and Tomino. Yeah.
Yes, and if I'm not mistaken, Ano also played some minor role in on this in this movie, right? Working on this
Yes.
movie, right?
Yes, he was the mechanical designer for all the ships. So like every big like Neo Zeon ship, etc., was like designed by Anno. And I imagine he was probably helping out in many other capacities here and there, drawing frames and stuff like that.
I see. I guess the last bit of trivia which I can think of is that I think you are the person who mentioned this to me that the first use of CGI um, in Gundam can be found in this movie apparently.
Uh, oh yeah, it's just the T. It's the T.
Is it the tree or is it the colony? Wasn't it the colony?
Oh
Um,
yeah, the colony too. Yeah, is like some very basic CGI. Yeah, CGI was like, I guess you could say, thankfully, from our perspective. I was actually watching the well, but yeah, CGI was this this in its infancy back in the day, and for Japan, and Japan took a hell of a lot longer to get CGI going. And the result was that they did stick with 2D animation and have stuck with it to this day, whereas the West has like completely moved on. I mean, there's been some reintegration of 2D animation because of the popularity of anime, but that's mostly been in like the quote unquote California style or whatever it is, that very ugly style that Google uses now and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's a horrible style, the Kalat style.
Mm-hmm.
And Justin says that the Gundam 00 movie was pretty good in his opinion. Have you seen it?
I like that. For me, the Double O movie, a couple hours of like not too much happening. I feel like not too much happens plot wise until the final battle. It's all set up, which admittedly you could say here as well. But here, you're actually constantly getting stuff with Shaw or Amuro or Quest going on. Particularly Shaw being a bastard, and Lala haunting them and stuff like that. You don't have nearly the same amount of stuff going on with the characters in the Double O movie. And then at the end, it's literally just resolved by Amuro, Setsuna unleashes understanding rays, and then there's like a big giant flower, and that solves everyone's problems. And it it's so easy, and it just happens that I don't like it. It's like fight. Uh, just the idea, I guess you could say, of fighting to unleash understanding rays. I mean,
I mean, but you could say
they
that that's basically what happens at the end of CCA too, right?
no, not
I mean,
really.
I mean, there wasn't any problem in Char's plan. It's just that some magic happened.
Well,
Um,
yes, it is literally magic that saves the day. But that in that case, it's all these people coming together, forcing their will together, and it's their own wills resonating that actually causes that. That actually causes. It's been retroactively called the Axis shock. Um, whereas in Double O movie, it's literally just one guy, and he unleashes his understanding rays. Uh, I mean, maybe I feel like obviously that was always what they were going to do in the Double O movie, but I feel like if they'd made it a lot more esoteric, something like how they do the angel scenes in Evangelion, uh, where they have like the angels talking with the person, and it's like not clear, and they use weird footage. Something like that could have been a lot better if they were going to do the understanding stuff with the Double O movie, but for me, it just came across as like, I don't know, I guess you could say unearned and boring, and too over the top in the Double O movie, but that was me.
I see. So you said you had some questions for me, given that you have watched this movie a few times, and I've only seen it twice now. I think I watched this a while ago, basically a few years ago, right after watching MSG, and because I hadn't seen Zeta, I didn't feel that change in Char's character.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because he was a bad guy. Okay, he's a bad guy again. Okay. But yeah, you said you had a bunch of questions or something to ask
Well,
from me.
not that many, but I guess just what was your
Um,
what was your general impression? Did the action did the action capture your attention? Uh, yes, basic stuff like that.
mm, I guess it did, but I would give it. I would give this the movie a 7 out of 10, to be honest.
Mm,
Because I don't know. Maybe even though the action was good, maybe that wasn't good enough. Uh,
mhm.
because, for example, I would give another movie with very good animation called Red Line. I think it was called by Studio Madhouse.
Yeah.
And again, the animation was good, but I can't give something more than a 7 out of 10 for just being a good action movie. Um, I guess I just didn't feel um, I didn't feel like what it was hyped up as, the end of the rivalry between Char and Amuro, because I didn't feel like there was much rivalry. It just seemed more like they were hung up about Lala um,
Yeah.
all this time, rather than a rivalry
Yes.
about who is
Well,
best. Yeah.
yeah. That's sort of the heart of it, though. It's, Shaw just being hung up about Lala.
Yeah,
Uh,
I guess what was on like written on the tin wasn't there, I guess, or something like that for me.
yeah,
Uh,
there are ideological disputes, and I mean that's why you have the whole thing where they're talking in the asteroid. Where Amuro gives this very, very nice speech where he basically is attacking all these would-be revolutionaries and say that reality's never good enough for them. They get angry with their ideals getting swallowed up by mediocrity. They become recluses, etc., etc.
yeah, but I think yeah, but I mean, Char didn't become a recluse, at least.
No, he was a recluse for a little while, and then he
Mm.
comes back,
And
and
Amuro
then
still
he
hates him, but Amuro still hates him, even though he's not a recluse. So I mean, I kind of feel like there is some kind of an ideological disagreement, but
yeah, it's the same like gradualist versus now disagreement that you had at the end of Zeta between Neo Zeon and the Titans versus the Ayug, and Shaw at that time was more on the gradualist side of things, but you could tell even then, like there was like some shaking in his voice, like he wasn't entirely convinced of it. You could almost tell he was trying to convince himself of it.
yeah, I think the biggest problem is that, as you have said several times, it's kind of obvious what the right thing to do is. Like, people have to move out of Earth. Um, yeah,
Yeah, that is something that I'll admit clearly. Gundam just takes this as granted, and it never justifies it that well. Like it shows that the car has turned into a sandy desert. And admittedly, there's quite a bit of destruction you see from the colonies, but you never get an impression of, oh, Earth's going to be unable to support its population. It feels
and we don't.
influenced.
I
It
mean,
feels influenced by a lot of the time where there were a lot of scares about overpopulation and whatnot,
yeah, and we
and a
don't we
lot of
don't we
that's
don't really get an answer for any of that either. Like what is the answer? Like we can all understand each other, and the new type powers will save us. Um, because
yeah.
yeah, because
It, it,
yeah, go on.
yeah, it is essentially that. Just new type powers will allow humanity to the next stage of evolution, and it's not like it will necessarily create paradise, but people will at least be able to innately understand one another, and that will smooth
Yeah,
things over.
but then a few hundred years later, there's Victory Gundam, and that hasn't happened, has it? Uh,
That's only like 60 years later, and yeah, new
yeah,
types are
okay.
like barely in that show at all.
I see, I see. So, Justin in the chat asks, what do you guys think about the Gundam Seed Stargazer OVA?
So it's a good OVA. It's an ONA, technically, original net animation. I don't imagine you've watched it. There's no reason for you to have watched it yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's It's an interesting comparison because both of these, like that Seed Stargazer ONA is only 45 minutes long in total. And some people don't like it because it's a little choppy, which is like the same criticism this film sometimes gets. I don't mind it the slightest bit in Seed Stargazer, and I think it sets things up really well. A lot of people also like Seed Stargazer because it has uh, this lot more depressive, tragic, and cynical view on things, you might say, that feels directorially and message wise a lot closer to UC Gundam than the other Seed stuff, which is the reason a lot of people and like that.
I see. Are there any other things you want to talk about Char's Counterattack?
Uh, I mean, you talked a little about Hathaway being annoying. I imagine just because he's like literally sneaks onto a mobile suit.
Yeah, the reason why I found him annoying is because he killed Chan, who was trying to just because she was trying to save him.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
it's kind of the definition of a dick move. Yeah.
Guinea was pathetic, simp or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
Um,
Gine is just sort of there. He's there to show that cyber new type powers have gotten a lot better. But yeah, he is just sort of set up. He's a little oversensitive, but overall pretty normal. He lusts after Quest a little bit. And he sets a few things up for the characters and whatnot. But yeah, he just sort of like dies in the middle of a battle in classic Tomino way, where it's like just completely sudden and out of the blue. Tomino likes doing that to show like how
yeah,
chaotic
yeah, and
the the battlefield is.
yeah, another thing which I didn't like is, well, how come? Why is it that Hathaway and Guinea as well just suddenly fell in love with Quest, like so much so that they're willing to risk their life for her or something?
Well,
Even yeah,
Hathaway, it's pretty easy to understand. Here's this. They talk a little bit, and you're like a 13-year-old, and another 13-year-old is kind of cute.
okay.
Go after her, and also the other thing is she. Well, once she starts throwing herself in danger and like being this foolish one, and then you have like Amro start talking about like she's courting the Grim Reaper. That's the type of stuff. Like Amro is just being blunt and honest, but those are the type of comments that really push Hathaway to acting, that really make him go, "Oh my gosh, I have to do something about this." Because I mean, you're young, and then this like crush that you've just made had with someone is like really intense to you, and this person is about to die, and of course you're going to go nutty and risk your life and all that. Uh, Gine, yeah, it just romance because I mean, just sort of interested in her because why not? It's fine.
Hmm.
There's no real depth there, but I'm fine with it because it's not like a major part of the movie or anything.
Yeah. Guinea is kind of useless. I think I don't know. Maybe he's there to form a contrast with Chow or something. Um, let's see. Another thing which I didn't like Quest for, I guess, is that she just went from liking Amuro then to, because she was annoyed that Amuro had a girlfriend, but then suddenly, okay, Chai is the coolest. I'll go with him.
No, but
Uh,
that's what's brilliant about it. She's she's jumping from one to the other because as she said, she's just looking for this father figure, for this person that's like
Yeah, daddy.
much
Yeah,
old.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. No, exactly. And she is looking for someone who's like a lot wiser, and someone that, frankly, she thinks
Yeah, somebody with mommy
actually knows
issues.
what's
Yeah,
going on. And mommy issues.
yeah. Um, I see. As for I'm kind of Mirai. I don't know. I kind of felt like her character has kind of been useless ever since she had kids. I guess it's just to show like these are like how what people on Earth are like or something. Um,
Yeah, in Zeta, she has more going on. She like advises Camille a little and
yeah,
stuff
a little
like
bit.
that.
Yeah. And Amuro. Yeah, I
In
think.
no, and Amuro and Camille both. More Camille, from what I recall.
Yeah.
But yeah, in this movie, she's just sort of there as like literally being the firing line, and also always as a contrast of like those horrible elite on Earth. Well, here's how the horrible elite on Earth are living. They're literally in the slums.
Yeah. I don't think. Yeah. We see Hayato's other kids because I think. Yeah, we don't see them.
Yeah,
We don't
you
see.
don't
Yeah.
see Frown the kids. Hayato's dead already.
We don't see Kai.
No,
No, we don't see Sailor. And instead, we see
no.
these lousy new characters, which I didn't really care that much about.
Yeah,
Even Nanai was a bit annoying, really. Like,
oh, I like Nanai. I can totally see why Shaw was into her. I thought she was a nice character.
I don't know. I thought that she was a bit too jealous about Quest when obviously Char was just using Quest. Um,
Yeah, yeah, but the thing is,
didn't
like,
she?
Shaw has
I
this
mean,
aloof personality, so
yeah.
with her, with just her limited perspective, it's easy to come to that sort of
I see. Maybe she thought
conclusion.
that she was that Quest was a Lala replacement or something.
Well,
Uh,
yeah, and also the fact that Shaw is like being aloof all the fucking time, so it's like it's easy to misread that aloofness.
I mean, he wasn't that aloof when he
Yeah,
was with her, but I
he's on
mean,
and off.
didn't I think a character? I'm not sure whether it was Nanai, but somebody literally called. It probably was Yune, I imagine, who called a Cha a lolicon. What
Yes, yeah, that's been memed to death as well. Yeah, which isn't that accurate, to be honest. Because think of it this way: let's look at all of Shaw's relationships he's been in these shows. Been in one with Lala. Lala was like just a few years younger than him. Haman, again, I mean, just a few years younger with him. I mean, she's younger in the Shaw's the lead affair manga, so if you want to go off of that, but that is just sort of fanfic. I mean, they started a relationship when Hama. Okay, actually, yeah, that's a fair. Well, actually, I don't know when they decide that Shaw started the relationship with Haman, because technically speaking, they mentioned that she turned 20. Haman did in Zeta Gundam 0087. So Haman would have been 14 when at the end of the 1 year war. So if we assume that Shaw immediately got together with Haman, there might be something there. Although it's admittedly super screwy in general that they say Haman is 20 and she doesn't look 20 at all. Uh But yeah, other than that, I can't think of any other examples. He like sure he leads quests on, but Nanai's like the same age as Shaw is, and yeah, Lala was slightly younger than Shaw, but not that much. At this point, I feel like it's literally just a meme that people enjoy memeing about because that line is just so blunt and such an odd thing to say.
mm. Yeah. I guess. Let's see. One of the reviewers said that he thought that the only scene in which Char looked peaceful was in the train scene. Or do you think that Char was just putting on his clown act
No,
there
that's
as well?
fair. That's fair. That's fair. And he also looks a little bit more relaxed in the car there. I mean that's fair. Uh, I'm trying to get to that scene. It is, and naturally he would like appreciate that sort of genuine affection that's coming from like random space noid civilians. Because I mean, theoretically, that's who he's fighting for. He's who he's trying to fight for,
Hmm.
or trying in his mind to fight for, but his own issues are getting in the way.
If I'm not mistaken, Char gives two speeches, or was it only one? I can't remember now. Um,
Yeah, I think he gives two. There's one at the start, and then the central speech he gives about the true purpose behind our operation is to drop Axis on Earth, and everyone just sort of goes along with it. It's like, well, which is like a great display of like once you've got that buy-in, people do not go back on things. Like you can announce completely insane, evil ideas, and they'll go along with it because they trust you already. There is that buy-in, and they'll.
I mean, to be honest, I don't get why the enemies of the Federation haven't dropped more things on Earth rather than just one or two colonies. Um, yeah. Already, I mean, they've already dropped two or three things, right? By this time.
Mhm.
I don't know. Maybe there aren't so many empty colonies that they can just go.
Yeah, that is sort of the issue. Is it's like there aren't tons of empty colonies around. Uh, when Xeon first did it in Operation British, they literally gassed the inhabitants of that colony and then dropped the colony. Really awful.
Hmm. I personally preferred when it comes to Char's speeches. I thought that the one he gave in Zeta was probably the best. But
Oh, I think this is a lot more thematic
you
and
think so? I see. Hmm.
but that's just me. I mean, you've got the big colors. He's got this ridiculous, but kind of regal get up. And he's talking a lot more about that. There's this nice crescendo, as I've already mentioned. Talks about I'll finally be able to just lend me a little bit more of your strength, and then finally I will be able to reunite with my father Xeon.
Yeah, I guess the troops, standing on I guess horizontally, no,
Yeah,
vertically, because there's no gravity. Kind of did look
yeah.
cool.
It is. It visually, it's a very interesting uh scene. Like the visuals throughout this movie are absolutely stunning, gorgeous, beautiful. Not enough I couldn't say about that. Uh,
When it comes to body language, though, I did kind of feel like he was moving around his hands too much. um,
hey, that's you have a problem with the fascist phase, do you?
yeah, I see what they were going for. The Mussolini or
Yeah,
Mustache Man act.
I don't know if they were particularly going for that, but it didn't bother me in the slightest.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I was going to make like the point of like, did they really mean it, or was it just an act all over again? Um, yeah, I mean, he yeah, I mean, at this point, I think I guess this time he wasn't forced to play the part of the clown.
Mhm.
He brought it on himself, I guess.
Yes.
So I thought that unless you can think of anything else, I thought we might go over some negative reviews on Mal just for fun. Um,
If you want, I'm the type of person where it's like I have my opinion and I'll discuss it with the other person, but it's fine, whatever. I don't care as much about like random anons views or whatnot unless I find it interesting. But
mhm.
go ahead, go ahead. I know you enjoyed this stuff.
Yeah. So let's see. The lowest one I could find was 4 out of 10. So let's see.
Uh huh.
TLDR, a well animated, very badly written movie that doesn't deserve to exist. God. uh, Now let's see
Wrong.
where we are, shall we? We have seen Gundam 0079, an interesting show that suffered due to budget constraints and a committee that did not understand what kind of show Tomino and his team wanted to make. However, things changed for the good. After the successful run of the compilation movies, everyone and their mom went crazy for Gundam, so Tomino pretty much had a. I don't know, like a lot of these negative reviews. Same with Ashton Ojo yesterday. They start off with the positives, and I don't know, if you're going to give a negative review, just start off with the negatives.
Yeah.
Um, so Double Zeta Gundam happened, and God knows we don't talk about Double Zeta Gundam. Okay.
I do.
Yeah, but when I asked whether they should have whether we should have a chat about it, you said no. So I
well,
had,
well,
yeah,
yeah. Well, we talked about like it was just an issue of like you'd already watched it, and I didn't want to rewatch Double Zeta in a week, and I also knew no one else was going to because we already got so few people for Zeta, which is actually a big mainline show. So it was, I guess you could say, it was mostly just laziness on my part, where I didn't want to rewatch the whole show in a week. That was all.
yeah. Fair enough. It's pretty long. It's 47 episodes, whereas this is just 2 hours, and people are just too lazy not to come. I guess. So let's recap. The original show introduced us to the Amuro and Char rivalry. These characters went from enemies to comrades, to even some sort of friends in Zeta Gundam. I don't know. Were they really friends?
Yes, yes. No,
Hmm,
I'd agree. I'd agree.
I don't know.
There was always that tension there, but yes, they were friends.
I mean, Cha wasn't that long on Earth though. Like maybe a few. I don't know. It just felt pretty short to me. Yeah, and Justin also likes Double Zeta good. I also thought it was alright. Um, Nothing horrible about Double Zeta. The last thing we knew about Cha was how he blew up, fighting alongside the Ayug crew against
Uh,
Hamanka. Yeah, yeah,
okay, can you get to like rather than like reading through the whole review, can you get to like
the negative
I don't know,
stuff, I guess.
parts where he's actually critical.
Okay. The story is total nonsense. There's no character development of any of the old characters or even the new characters.
Wrong,
It's not.
wrong.
It's not consistent for previously established events or straight up doesn't care. The pacing is horrible. Um,
Pacing is frenetic. Some will like it, some won't.
yeah, because it's mostly about the action, really. There's a space battle at the beginning, then characters talk for a bit. Then there's a new space battle, then characters talk for a bit. But I mean, what else does he want from Gundam? I don't get it. Um,
Yeah, I mean, did you not watch Zeta Gundam? Was that not what happened most in Zeta Gundam? It was like character development. Oh, here's the daily battle. Go do the daily. There's do the weekly battle. Weekly battle's over. More character development. End episode. That's Zeta.
I don't know. Maybe I guess what he wanted was one long battle or something like that. Uh,
I'd.
Rather than a bunch of small battles with dialogue in between. Um,
It would be even this movie can be like very exhausting watching it. If it was like completely one battle with no breaks, that would be totally exhausting, and it wouldn't work.
They only needed to show us the final showdown between Amuro and Char and what led to it. But instead,
That
hmm,
that's funny because most people complain about this movie being in medias res and not showing enough of the build-up. This guy is complaining that they show too much and that they should have just cut to the final battle, I guess.
yeah, Justin says that he didn't like the creepy stuff in Double Zeta, but he thought that Judo was a pretty cool MC, and he liked
Oh,
his
yeah.
group of. I don't remember any creepy stuff in Double Zeta.
He's talking like Puru and some of the stuff like
Uh,
that.
I see. I don't care.
Yeah, yeah.
Um. Okay. Um. But instead, we got this 30 to 40. I mean, it's Domino. Instead, we got this 30 to 40% screen time dedicated to Quest Pariah and the other idiots in this quote unquote, love triangle. Um, yeah, people really hate that character. I guess.
Yes, people despise Quest.
Uh,
Like, I can totally see what they're going for with her, and I don't mind it. I feel like probably the source that makes people most despise her is that one line where she goes like, "Why are you getting in my way with Amuro?" It's just like
yeah.
it's such a bratty thing to say. I just fully accept it and go like, "That's such a funny thing to say," and like, I get where she's coming from. It's just most people aren't going to be that over the top. Uh, Yeah, it doesn't bother me because like that would actually be a pretty normal reaction if she wasn't so like completely blunt about it.
Um,
Uh,
I've heard a rumor, by the way, that Asuka's character was inspired by Quest. I don't know. Have you heard of that rumor
have you?
before? Yeah.
Well, I've said that myself. I've not heard of that being a rumor. Uh, but I've noticed like yeah, there's a little bit of parallels there. In terms of like very much like wanting attention from an older man and
Twin Tails
uh,
or something.
yeah,
I
twin
don't.
tails. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess Cha is the evil Kai or something.
Which I guess shows like how much just tweaking a similar character slightly can change audience perception. Like Quest is this despised character, and Asuka is literally the waifu that people adore. It's like one of the two main waifus of Evangelion, one of the biggest waifus ever.
Yeah, I know that the Quest haters are going to hate me for saying this, but or maybe they'll agree. But I thought that the problem was more like not just her character, but that there wasn't enough time for her character. Like because I mean Camille and other characters in Zeta, and even the characters in Double Zeta, especially the characters in Double Zeta, at the start were annoying, but given enough time to develop and change, you can get something. Whereas I don't think that there was any development for Quest's character really.
Well, the point was supposed to be a tragedy with her. The point is that like she literally kills her own father, which is like really really fucking dark. She doesn't realize it
Yeah.
either. Uh, but she the point was for it to be a tragedy, and the point was that Shaw was going to like completely stunt her growth, and that she was going to die horribly and tragically, and like, that was the point from the start.
I guess her character got more time in. You read the manga for Beltorchika's Children? Did her?
Yeah, it's about equal
I
time.
see. I see.
Yeah, it's about equal time.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I was kind of disappointed when I found out that Beltorchika's Children was only 30 chapters. Really,
Yeah.
because I'd heard some people say like, oh, if they're going to adapt this, or like they should make it like at least a 13 episode anime. But I don't think, from what you say, that there's enough content in Beltorchica's children
No,
for a.
it's based like literally line by line. Most of the lines are the exact same.
Yeah, yeah. So, and I haven't heard anywhere say that the manga is different from the novels that much
Yeah.
either. So, okay, where was I? Hathaway and that other imbecile whose name I already forgot. I think he's talking about um,
Like
Yune,
Gide?
maybe.
Yeah, I'm guessing.
Um,
That's my guess.
yeah. They serve no purpose to the plot. Do Hathaway and Yune serve a purpose to the plot?
Gine doesn't serve tons. He's more background and is another enemy ace to kill. Hathaway definitely serves a purpose in being in seeing the drama between him and Quest and him risking his life for her and the whole thing burning up at him and ends up killing Chan. I mean, this is the sort of the issue when you say someone quote unquote serves no purpose to the plot. Well, if you zoom out enough, a plot is like good guys win, bad guys lose, the end. And a lot of characters don't serve a purpose to the plot. But but it's like if there's something going on with those characters, you could still say that they're worthwhile or they're like contributing somewhat, even if they're like because like he's correct. The basic plot is Shaw tries to drop an asteroid. Amuro stops him. The end. From that perspective, you could say no one else contributes to the plot, like in the most literal sense of the term. But that doesn't mean that you could or should just strip out Bright, Nanai, Hathaway, Lala, all the rest of them. None of them should be stripped out. I don't know. It's one of those weasel phrases that can be abused.
So he also says that they serve no purpose to the thematic elements and
I disagree.
and to anyone's character development.
Disagree.
I see. So they just waste precious runtime in a movie that's already way too long, and
Mm-hmm.
and needed more time to flesh out other way more interesting aspects like Mirai's struggle trying to survive on Earth. Do we really need?
No, no. We saw enough of that. I don't like if you want to make a survival movie about Mirai and her children, I guess you can, but I don't see how that would really contribute. I feel like that would just be jarring if they focused on her a whole ton.
So then there's the ending. Oh God, what an awful ending! At first, at first I thought it was going to be a nice ending that the movie did not deserve. As someone that enjoys melodramatic events that may not make sense or seem cheesy, but help drive an emotional message to the viewer. And I thought Amuro dying, pushing away Axis with the help of the other units was a good end to the character, and a fitting message of hope and sacrifice that the film was not worthy of. But then, but then he just sparkles the shit out of everyone, and the meteor. We have a brief montage of people on the Earth reacting, and suddenly the movie ends. That's no actual end to the conflict. Neo Zeon still exists. They just ruined the plan they had in mind. There's no aftermath or closure to talk about. It just stops there. So I think
But
that.
that's the thing. Neo Zeon is almost dead. Like, you're right, the soldiers exist, but the rallying point was Char. They don't have a rallying point anymore. And, like, canonically, they were, like, so out of ideas, they literally had to tell a guy to start pretending to be Char and take on his memories in order to even give him a leader.
Hmm. Yeah, so I guess it's kind of like the complaint that people have about Double Zeta about double Zeta being meaningless because Neo Zeon is going to arise again. So, like, what is the point of watching um, them get
Oh,
defeated?
oh,
Yeah,
okay. Like civilizations are going to rise and fall. Why does this war matter? Just
yeah. But what they're saying is that it's the same faction, not just not dying. I guess. Um, which, I don't know. This movie does not deserve to exist. It serves no purpose other than being the first Gundam film. Nothing leads to the events of this film. We gain nothing. we have met so many characters through the first of two shows, but seems like nobody in the production team cared about them. Char's sister Selah, she's nowhere to be found. Camille, no. By the way, speaking of Camille, I've heard that again, this is something which I heard while watching some reviews um, that Gune is the replacement for Camille. That basically
I
Camille was. Yeah, sorry. What is it?
I don't think that's the case. I have seen interviews where Tomino has talked about like he specifically didn't want to bring too many characters behind from previous series in because he wanted to keep it somewhat balanced so that you could feel at least somewhat for Char's side. And basically, you couldn't do that unless you had someone who was. You can either limit the amount of characters from the last show, or you from previous shows, or you could bring someone else from those previous shows onto Char's side. And he said, like, in that capacity, if I did choose to do that, I'd have to. If I did like introduce Camille in this movie, who had somewhat recovered, I would have to bring him in on Char's Neo Zeon side just to give it some sense of proportionality. But obviously that wouldn't work because, like, Camille would not have gone along with a plan like this at all, which is why ultimately you just have Amuro and Bright pretty much.
Hmm. Yeah, but I guess the problem which most people have with this film is that they feel like uh they that Tomino kind of forced the conflict out of thin air. Um.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it is conflict out of thin air. It is like Shaw just show well. The central conflict about Earth v space and getting people into space was unresolved. If you're talking like that, there is no how shall I put it? There's no setup to Shaw building this Neo Zeon, and that's out of the blue. Yeah, it is. Like,
But I guess what I mean is more like the conflict between Cha and Amuro was already resolved. Um,
yeah, no,
yeah.
that's quite fair. They had resolved it themselves, and now they've sort of unresolved it, so they can re-resolve it in this movie. And yeah, that's fair. But at the same time, this is also a wrap up to Amuro and Char's fates, because like especially Char, as long as he's surviving and out there somewhere, uh. eh, you know he's going to do something in the Earth sphere, and this is sort of like a wrap up towards that, a much more tragic wrap up, and a lot of people don't like that, and it's understandable, but that's the way they chose to do it.
So he goes on to say apparently all the relationships that they developed together during Zeta was not worthy of even being mentioned. So much for being his mentor and father figure, I guess. But
They're
but
well,
Quest,
he was father figure to Camille, and also they. So you could argue whether it was intentional, but a lot of people point to the callback of like the scene in Zeta where Amuro says that Char has become a human sacrifice, and he's staring into a glass of whiskey. And there's a similar scene where Char's staring into a glass of whiskey. That could totally be overanalysis, but it seems like it's possibly a callback.
But by the way, have you listened to the dub, to the English dub for?
Yeah, the English dub for this is quite good. This was done by Ocean Dubbing Group. You've got like Michael Kopsa as Char. He does Char very well. You've got Brad Swale as Amber Ray. He does an excellent job. So it's the same VAs from original Mobile Suit Gundam, but it's put into like just a 2-hour runtime. So they have a lot more time to get their lines right. And overall, it's a very, very solid dub. I tend to watch Japanese, but it's a very good dub. You couldn't go wrong with it.
So there are too many problems with the spacing. We're introduced to characters at a breakneck speed, not being able to truly learn about their personality or their motivations. Not really. I mean, we do get to know about their personality and motivations. It's just that the new characters are not, their personalities and motivations are not that interesting. Really, that's the issue. Um, Moments that are supposed to be emotionally impactful are merely glossed over as the film callously transitions to the next scene. I guess the only
No,
maybe
there's
hmm.
oh
Maybe Astonage,
Astonagi.
yeah, maybe his death was a bit glossed over. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, it is a little sudden. They do it where Asanagi's girlfriend dying, and I like that scene where they it's subdued a little, and they tell him not to come and come see. But you can see like how much he's grieving and how much that's a horrible way to die, or see your loved one die, and you can sort of like Asanagi, of course, is like a very one note character that just so happens to have survived this long. Uh, but you can very much feel for him in that moment. Tomino's never been the type of director that's like focused on a death too long. Like the point is that the characters do not have the time to focus on a death, no matter how tragic.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, yeah, there wasn't really any much point in waiting. So a large portion of the movie is dedicated to exposition. I would estimate around 40 to 50% of the film is just characters recounting events. Not really.
No, no, wrong. Like exposition would be Char's speech. There's a little bit with Quest's dad, Adenauer. He expositions a little on the. I guess technically you could say the meeting with to hand over the stuff is to hand over Axis is exposition technically. I, I don't really see where the guy's going with that at all.
Do you feel like Quest is more hated than Rekoa?
Yes,
I
yes,
see.
by a country mile.
That's quite an achievement, I must say. Well, yeah, I mean, at least Rekoa had I'm a woman line, but I guess it's sort of the same, except here it's like I'm a brat. Um, I see.
Yeah, I guess I guess they're both following the ideology of my ideology is whatever makes me feel good.
Hmm.
Is to follow my own feelings. That was the line.
Hmm. Hmm. So,
But Quest at least dresses it up a little, and she views it in ideological terms, even if yeah, she is following her own feelings.
Hmm. Yeah. I guess I kind of get the feeling that people would have preferred that, or at least these people would have preferred if Char's counterattack never happened, and instead Double Zeta was where you got the finale because 40.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was the original plan. For whatever reason, apparently, like somewhere in the production of Double Zeta, they got Tomino got the green light that he could make this like big movie, and so Tomino decided to do that instead of wrapping up Char's story in Double Zeta. A lot of people speculate that Glemmy's role in terms of like uh, starting a Neo Zeon civil war would have instead been taken on by Char in Double Zeta, but they cast him, but instead they put Char back into this, which would also explain why he have Char in the middle of Double,
Hello.
despite
Yeah.
him
Yeah.
despite him never appearing.
I see. Yeah. Yeah. In the opening scenes, he's there. Um.
No, like literally in the opening anime Janai, they have him yelling alongside Judo, despite the fact that Char physically never appears in that show.
So, what's supposed to be the main focus of the movie, Char and Amuro's rivalry, isn't touched
Yes.
upon enough, apparently. Um,
Mm.
yeah, I think it's basically saying that you only get that only the ending is mostly about that. Um, like the last 20 to 30 minutes. Um, would you agree with that? I mean, yeah, but at the same time, Amuro and Chad do not meet before the ending, so how
No,
can?
they meet in the colony Sweetwater. They
Oh
chew
yeah,
out
yeah, they
at
do.
one
Yeah.
another. They yell at one another.
Mm.
I mean, a lot of this comes across to me as just I want things over explained, and it's like I don't need things over explained.
So I believe that Cameron also makes yeah we talked about when we talked about characters from the
Oh
old
yeah,
show. We forgot to mention Cameron, but he doesn't really
Cameron
do
Bloom.
much. Yeah, right.
Yeah, he plays a minor role to like emphasize like how fucked the Federation is, and Cameron risks his career by leaking this information to Bright about what's going on, which like ends up like is the reason that Bell can position themselves in time, and is the reason that the asteroid doesn't drop on Earth. So like Cameron Bloom is like really the fulcrum upon which this story turns in a way, even if he's a minor role. Like if that one individual moment of bravery, if he'd not done that, the whole world would be like stuck in a nuclear winter and millions of people have died. All because of the courage of this one man.
Yeah,
And no one will ever know,
yeah,
except like Wright.
yeah, but I mean, what I did hear people say about it is like, oh look, how pathetic Cameron. He still talks about Mirai and us.
Yeah.
um, yeah. Yeah, I guess it was a bit weird, but I mean, he just asked like, how was she? Like, that's not
Yeah,
such a
yeah.
weird thing. Um,
Yeah.
but I guess I think he asked something like, when have you last seen her?
Mhm.
And I think,
Yeah, it
yeah,
it comes across like he hasn't really moved on, or that he doesn't have a wife of his at this point, so he's still so when he bumps into Bright, he naturally talks a little bit about Mirai and whatnot. So that's sort of what people are talking about.
Yeah, so this guy goes on to complain about how previous plot threads are not continued. He doesn't give any examples, but I imagine it's something like you know something like
Okay.
what happened to Karaba and
They
the Ayug.
failed.
Uh,
Like the AU was like on death's door and barely funding itself in Double Zeta Gundam, and then they use all their abilities. They defeat the, everyone that's left over, and like their funds are spent. They don't have any more pilots. There's no reason to keep fighting. Anything else has to be done at like a diplomatic level inside the Federation government because they don't want to go to war with it. And then all the diplomatic efforts fail. The end.
hmm.
Like, do, it's very clear. I'm done. Unless you see something interesting left over here, I'm.
I see. No, I think when it comes to looking at these negative reviews, there's some other 5 out of 10 ones, but I imagine it's Char's counterattack should not exist. The movie's a slap in the face to those who enjoyed Zeta Gundam and Char Aznable. Yeah,
This
but
man should not exist.
um, yeah, I think I kind of get the feeling that most people who don't like Char's counterattack are people who liked Zeta. Um,
Yes, there's a lot of sneaking at it because they, and I can't entirely blame them in that capacity. They really like the direction Shaw took in Zeta, and they really zigzagged and took a different direction for Shaw on this. And I can't blame some people for being a little miffed at that, but I think there's plenty else to enjoy regardless, and I think the direction that they went with Shaw, even if you dislike it, is still interesting, and he's still I likable as this completely pathetic figure that they've turned him into.
so Justin in the chat has another off-topic question. But what do you think about the future of mecha anime?
Um, not good. There hasn't been a big mecha anime that's blown up since essentially Unicorn and Code Geass. Those are the last ones. This AIM show that's come out, which really I should see some of, but my impression is it's not doing well. That it hasn't garnered much attention in either the US or Japan, and it's generally seen as mediocre. I really like that Back Arrow show that was shown shown this year. That was back in like spring. Uh, it was done by like the same writers going Logon, same directors Code Geass, and spiritually it feels a lot like going Logon. Uh, but it's a little bit more uneven, so that's why it didn't take off. Still, it should have gotten a lot more attention than it ended up getting. Uh, but yeah, I don't think there's a very positive future other than like slow decline for mecha. There's generally not the funding for mecha shows. The You don't have kids who are interested in super robot stuff anymore. It's seen as the old generation stuff, which is a big issue. And my you don't really see any super robot shows that are aimed at kids or anything like that. I mean, you have the Build, Battlelog, whatever Gundam stuff, which I guess they keep making, and I guess keeps making money. So I guess you have that, and that might be keeping the young generation interested. I don't really know, but in terms of other stuff, yeah, it's basically the mecha genre has almost centralized down to, in terms of like releases people pay attention to, Gundam, and to a lesser extent Fafner. And that's almost entirely it. Even though like they still keep releasing mecha shows here and there aren't tons of interesting ones, and it's one of those things where there's such a back catalog of good shows. People tend to just like watch the old ones instead of like trying to keep up with the new ones, and that itself sort of like is slowly killing the genre. And it's basically in an undead, zombified state right now. They'll keep making more Gundams. There's if they it'll really help if this Gundam like Mercury whatever Venus thing that they're just in the planning stages of now, that could help. Like you're always like one Gundam show, or I guess you could say even one breakout mecha show away from it becoming a big deal again. But that's not on the horizon. Sunrise has tried to remake Code Geass like 5 times now. They've failed every time to the point that they gave up, and then they made the Code Geass movie, and that was mediocre. There's no. I'm not. It wouldn't take much to turn things around, but there's no signs of hope on the horizon. That's my take.
Hmm. Do you think that Char's Counterattack had much effect or influence on anime?
It's a pretty famous movie, pretty well regarded. Uh, I mean, as a greater story, um, I don't know because it is just sort of concluding a lot of the stuff that was set up in Zeta and Mobile Suit Gundam. It would be fair to say that it doesn't have a lot of ideas of its own. I think any inspiration that people are going to take from this that they wouldn't already get from the other Gundam shows is mostly going to be at a technical level, probably. It would be my impression. Yeah,
Hmm.
because that is something that you could fault this movie for, is like, compared to like Zeta Gundam, it doesn't have any new ideas. That would be a fair criticism.
Yeah, it doesn't really. It's just it's just about ending Amoros and Char's story on a high note rather than them, I don't know, becoming recluses, as Amuro said. Um, what did you think of the ending song? I
Beyond
mean,
the Time, I love it.
yeah, I mean, back to what time though? I was kind of wondering.
Oh,
Hmm?
I've always just viewed that as English. I don't actually know the. I actually don't know the Japanese lyrics of it, so I would be the wrong person to ask of if there's any special meaning to it. I don't think there's particularly is, but I could be wrong.
Hmm, I see. Yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad, but can you think of any other movies like this?
Um,
Not really, no.
I
Hmm.
guess there's Gundam F91, which is a lot worse.
Yeah, I guess when it comes to this, what came to mind to me for some reason was the Macross movie. Do you remember Love? For some reason.
Yeah, no, that is actually a fair comparison. Yeah, it's similar in that capacity. Yeah.
Because from what I get, I mean, I wasn't there obviously, but from what I get, they were both a big deal. I guess.
Yeah, Macross Do You Remember Love is absolutely stunning to look at. Like, that is. Char's counterattack is well animated. Uh, Do You Remember Love blows this out of the water in terms of animation and how it looks and all that. But at the same time, that it has a mixed feeling among the Macross community because it is just sort of like condensing 26 episodes into a movie. And so it's like, it's one of those things where each individual scene is quite well done, but it is just sort of like breakneck going through everything.
Yeah, the plot isn't that good, but it doesn't really matter because it's about basically just prettifying the scenes which you already did see.
Yeah.
Uh, though I believe that there were some new scenes when they were on Earth or something. I think.
Yeah, that's actually a thing they do. Yeah, there's more scenes with Hikaru and Misa where they're stuck on Earth a while and they're all alone, wonder if they might be the last people. Kind of romantic.
So Justin in the chat says that he heard Back Arrow was good, but he never saw it. I've never heard
Yeah,
of it.
yeah, it's good. If you're interested, you should watch it.
Is it a Gundam
Give
show?
it a few episodes. No, I talked about this earlier. I was talking 3 minutes ago. It's a mecha show by the writer of Gurren Lagann, director
Ah,
of
yeah,
Code
yeah, yeah. I remember
Geass.
now. I remember now. Okay. And he says that the Super Famicom game for F91 was good, apparently, or
Huh.
F91. I don't
I,
know. Yeah.
I didn't know they made a Super Famicom game for that.
The recommendations for Char's Counterattack on Mal are Code Geass.
Hmm.
I don't know. I guess there's a rivalry there between Suzaku and Lelouch, but it's kind of different, isn't it? Um,
Yeah.
the Nadesico Prince of Darkness movie.
I didn't like that one, but I liked Nadesco, but not that movie. But yeah, I guess they are sort of similar movies. But
Yeah, I heard that. I haven't seen Nadesico on the movie, but I've heard that in that movie too, the protagonist becomes evil or something. Oh, maybe
yeah,
not.
he becomes like totally emo when up till that point he'd never been like that, and in general, like it's a complete 180 in terms of like tone, which is like very jarring. Like Nadesco was serious, but it always had like something of a comical light feel to it. Whereas that film is like full on, very dark, almost emo feeling, and it's a little jarring.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that Char's character, or really that there was such a 180 here. Really, I mean, he was
Hmm.
always a manipulative person.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Yes.
The end of Evangelion, I guess, because it's
Yeah.
an ending. I guess it's the same concept. In just because it's an ending movie, but I personally I think it is a better movie than this one. For
Well, yeah. It's fucking end of Evangelion.
Mobile Suit Gundam Seed Destiny, is that like Char's Counterattack? No.
I mean, they drop a rock on Earth, a colony on Earth.
Okay. Let's see what the guy who recommended it says, if anything. Gilbert Durantal's actions and motives are similar to Char Aznavour, and they both have the same VA. The
They
uni-
have the same BA, yeah.
Okay, so that's the same
But
thing.
I would not. I mean, they're both manipulative bastards. But the thing is, like, Durandal's goals are different, and I'd say he's actually like a better person than Shaw is shown to be in this movie. But yeah, he has like he's just as manipulative as Shaw, probably a better manipulator than Shaw is in this.
And
But
yeah, and he also claims that the story is modeled in Mobile Seed Gun. Yeah, it's in Seed Destiny. It's modeled on Char's Counterattack. I don't know. Maybe that. No.
Usually people say it's modeled off of Zeta. I wouldn't particularly agree with either comparison, especially not Char's counterattack, because no, not
I see.
Yeah, the only similarity I see is the opening incident is rock falls to Earth. That's about the similarities I see there.
Yeah, Death Note, not really. I mean, I guess that's a rivalry. So,
There
yeah,
you go.
there you go. Cowboy Bebop, come on, no. Yeah, I mean, um, Gundam Wing. From what I've heard of it, no. Yeah, I think people are just recommending anything at this point
Yeah.
here. Like they're even recommending Mononoke. Which, I mean, can't think of a more different movie. Uh, which is still good, but like got nothing to do with this.
It's still about protect nature, damn
Oh,
you.
let's have a look. Maybe that's what they say. The recommendation has quite common similarities between two films. Both are created by legends. Okay, but and are considered to be classics. Okay, come on. Addresses Earth's pollution. Okay, you were right. So that was the similarity. Um, yeah, I think. Yeah,
Look, I don't care what people consider similar or not. It's a good enough movie. It can stand on its own feet. We don't have to compare it to everything else
yeah.
badly and poorly.
Yeah. So, I guess what is the score you would give it?
I would give it at least an 8 out of strong 8 out of 10.
I see. A strong 8. Mm. Um. Yeah, I guess that's fine. Who would you say is best girl, if there is any, this time? Because
Nanai, I
this
suppose.
is mostly about the guys this time.
Yeah,
So.
it is. It is. Best goal is Nanai almost by default.
mm, this,
Chan's just there.
yeah,
Chan's just there.
yeah. I think I'll go with Quest just to piss off people. Yeah, why not?
Sure.
Um. Yeah. I think. Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's been quite a journey, I guess now, going through from from MSG to this now, and I can only imagine how it must have felt like watching this as it came out.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, it probably took around 10 years or something, if not more, for.
Well,
Hmm,
yeah. This was released like the original Gundam was 79. You had a couple movies. The compilation movies were like 82, 83, 84. Then you had a couple years of Zeta Gundam and then Double Zeta. Okay, Zeta Gundam was 85.
hmm.
And then Double Zeta Gundam was next year, 86. And then Char's Counterattack, I think, was just 87. The 88. Okay, so a couple years after Double Zeta ended.
So,
So, yeah. Yeah, this was sort of like the finale to everything. And in a real way, this is like the finale to Gundam. Like, they could have just ended it here. They weren't going to, of course, but like everything with regards to the main characters is wrapped up here,
I mean, so you mentioned that.
and the original factions as well. Like, while Neo Zeon would be brought back for Unicorn, uh, like F91, etc. There's no more Zeon. Zeon doesn't exist anymore.
Mm, I see. Mm, I mean, earlier you said that you thought that Char's counterattack didn't really bring anything new, thematically at least. Um,
Yes.
but and you also mentioned that you thought that this was basically the ending to the series, and they could have ended it here.
Hmm.
So I guess the question is, has there really been anything significant, meaningful, new added to Gundam, or
Yes. G Gundam. I think Gundam X a little. Double O goes in some interesting directions. I'd say yes, because other Gundam shows. Oh, Toei, of course, as well. Other Gundam shows got to push the themes in their own direction. Like, this is very much like an obvious follow through from Zeta. Something like G Gundam is like an entirely different animal, and I know Tomino actually like thoroughly approved of G Gundam because it went in while it stayed true to some of the same themes, it went in such a completely different direction and did have a little bit of differences thematically.
mm,
Uh, yeah, I feel like for the most part, Gundam's actually been pretty good at reinventing itself each time. Like even the recent show Iron Blooded Orphans, which I actually take umbrage with a lot of its writing and how it doesn't make you give a fuck about the characters. Its emphasis on child soldiers was like something relatively new to Gundam.
because I think I posted it on this server that a quote from a podcast or something where like people are saying that every Tomino show, or rather, which you could say every Gundam show can be reduced to government bad, military good. Um, protect the trees or something, and war is bad.
Yeah.
Uh, no, I
Well,
guess not.
military good is wrong. But it is portrayed like this is the way that a they do set up like there's supposed to be like an honorable military, and there are counterexamples of dishonorable militaries. Yeah, corrupt Federation government bad. Yes, I mean it's always the corrupt Federation government, which is just in the way, and sclerotic and incapable of changing anything. You get almost the impression that maybe this is just me, but that Garmazabi, like vaporizing uh, General Revel and Degwin really killed the Earth sphere because, like, once Revel died, there wasn't this central figure who could represent the Federation and become their leader and change things for the better later on. It was no one was charismatic enough to be a central leader anymore, and so everything just sort of like decayed and continued on.
I mean, about the Lala could have been a mother quote. I mean, before this in Zeta, especially, I would say, but also a little bit in Double Zeta, you do get, and certainly in MSG, you do get a lot of you know father-like relationship, father son dynamics. But
Mhm.
this thing about you could have been my mother stuff. Didn't that come out of nowhere? I guess could it be something considered to be something new at least, which was
Yeah, I mean, it is a little out of like that Char. Well, no. I actually remember pointing out that there's scenes in like original Gundam where he talks about from now on I'll let you order me around to Lala or stuff like that. Shaw actually has this relationship with Lala where I in some ways he almost submits himself to her, and I mean she's not wont to do too much with that authority, but it's very untypical of Char. And so I guess you could say that is sort of like the same mommy GF idea, and that's why Tomino portrays it as like in such a blunt capacity in this.
mm. Yeah. Did Cha have a mask or something this time? No, sunglasses
No,
maybe. Yeah.
no. Well, Shaw briefly has sunglasses and sweet water, but that's it.
By the way, even though now he has acknowledged that he is his father's son, he doesn't go by Caswell Daikon. They still call him
No,
Char, right?
yeah, because that's what he's known by.
I see, I see. But it's not his real name, I guess.
Yeah, I guess you could say he's like a man of many masks, and even at the end, he's has to play a mask. Even his name is a mask, and he can't escape it.
So Justin says in the chat that his favorite Gundam song is "The Winner" from Gundam 0083.
I mean, it's good. I
uh,
wouldn't call it my favorite, but it's good.
he asks, "What do you guys think about Reconquista in G?" I
I
quit the
haven't.
yeah,
Yeah, he quit the show at like episode 12 or something.
episode 6, and he said that he heard it gets better, and he said that
Yeah,
he never finished
I
G
I
Gundam either.
I I did the same. I need to get back to it. I watched recently one of the little movies adaptations of it that was done, and it has inherent Tomino bad writing problems, which is like character motivations just going underexplained, or things jumping around, or characters just acting not reacting enough to things happening around them. It has typical Tomino bad writing if you look at some of his more obscure works. I'm sure the thing is, like, Tomino always has something interesting to say in his shows. You just have to like power through it. So I'm sure there's some interesting stuff there, but it is just weird as a show, and hard to recommend to anyone other than like a hobbyist of Gundam, essentially. Which is ironic. He made it to try and appeal to the new generation, and this is something that's only ever going to appeal to the old generation.
Hmm. So that thing called Char's Deleted Affair, by the way, it's a
Mhm.
doujin, right? So it's just a
No,
fan.
no, it's a manga. It's a full on manga, but it's made by someone else.
And that's how you know that Haman and Cha had a relationship. Is that how? Because I don't
Well,
remember. It's
it's gone over in Zeta where it shows like the one little picture, and there's various things supposed to like sort of hint at that. It was pretty generally understood that that was the case, and yeah, Shaw's Lead Affair explicitly shows their relationship and how it turns out. And oh boy, it's Shaw being aloof. Who wrote this? It says art director, written and illustrated by Hiroyuki Kitazume. Oh, okay. So this guy was like animation director back in Zeta and character designer for Double Zeta and Shaw's Counterattack. Okay, gotcha.
hmm. So what did you think about the mechs in this?
Yeah,
Uh,
mech designs are good. Like they're some of the best mecha designs Gundam got. The new Gundam's an excellent design. Sazabi's an excellent design. Jagen's a classic and great looking. Gyaradoga's are pretty good looking. Uh, Alpha Yaru is like this big thing, and it kind of looks cool. That's pretty much all the designs in the movie. And oh, Legacy's all right. I don't hate it. I don't love it, but it's there. It's nice. Yeah, all the mecha designs are good. I don't see it. No complaints. This was done by oh, who's the new Gundam's design? Let me just do Yutaka Izubuchi. Yeah, and I thought Izubuchi did like a very good job.
hmm. Yeah, I mean, I heard, by the way, that the reason why they removed Beltorchica's character and replaced her with Chan is because they thought that it would look cooler to teenagers uh, if he was made to seem like a lady killer or something rather than I don't know
That
I
is
don't know,
that
like a
is
dad.
that is that is the lamest corporate reason for a change ever.
Yeah, they didn't want to make him seem like a dad or something, and I think that's also the reason why if you that in Beltorchika's children, Bright has a beard, but that's why it's removed, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Mr. Adenauer actually denounces Wright for that beard, and I think he shaves it off towards the end.
I
It's
see.
it's really odd. It's just there.
I see. I see. So, so Justin asks, so what are your favorite non-Gundam Tomino shows?
Tournay. Zayden Tournay.
I see. I don't know if I've seen. Maybe I might have, but I don't know if it was by Tomino. But I do remember liking Ideon. So that's
Hmm.
that.
Yeah, Ideon's a Tomino show. I need to watch that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we have discussed. But by the way, um, do you remember Love come before or after? So I think
Came
Char
before.
before. Okay, that's pretty impressive. I mean, so this came out in Char's Counterattack came out in 1988, if I'm not mistaken. So
Yeah, and Do You Remember Love was 1980.
1980,
84.
84.
84.
I see. Yeah, I mean and it still looks better. So yeah, I guess
Yeah.
they had more money or something like that. I imagine.
I mean, I believe it. The like just if you want just a taste, go on YouTube and just look up clips. It'll probably show like either the opening scene clip or the finale scene clip, which are both like stupendously animated and stupendously directed scenes overall. Like you should like if you want to direct stuff almost you I guess anime especially, but you should just watch those scenes and see how well directed they are. They're really well done.
So I think you already told me the answer to this, maybe on Discord or maybe in another stream. But why did the Axis or rather Neo Zeon people help Amuro push back the asteroid and sabotage their own plan? Why do you think that
Yeah,
is?
from my perspective, it's just one of those things where, yeah, while it was easy to intellectualize about, yeah, we're going to do this before the asteroid was falling, I think a lot of them, well, one, they were inspired a little by Hamuro pushing against it, but some of them also probably realized that, dang, we're going to, like, basically destroy the fucking Earth. This is awful. And some of them say, like, hey, we're not going to let the Earth get destroyed either. So a lot of them that had just been, like, didn't know the full plan until the final battle, and had just signed on and it went along, and some amount who might have been for it, but then saw the reality of what was going on hit them, decided to assist in pushing the asteroid back.
Hmm. Um. By the way, was Quest cyber enhanced as well?
They specifically make some statements like that they don't need to give her any drugs or anything like that, though they do tests on her. So I don't think so. No, no.
Yeah, I asked because she has got the uh, she has got the cyber new type hair color. Uh,
Oh yeah, being a little screwy in the head. Nah, yeah, no. She's she has the little screwy in the head problem of bad parenting.
yeah, and I guess I thought maybe like so I guess it's probably Gune who is the like foe kind of character, I guess. Kind of insane.
Yeah, Gine like shows like how far the cyber new type technology has come. Like characters like Four or Rosami or Puru were completely nutso and out to lunch. Gine is relatively normal. He's literally just oversensitive. That's it. Shaw even says, like at one point, he's just young. That's all.
I see. So Justin in the chat says, "Sorry, I meant what are your mecha series by Tomino that aren't part of the Gundam franchise, like Ideon and Zabungal. I don't know how you pronounce that. For example."
Zabungal is how you pronounce it. Yeah, I've watched a few here and there. I watched some of Elgheim, which is interesting, but has its own downsides. It's sort of like more absurdist. It feels like feels like a little bit of a prototype for Double Zeta. I was watching a bit of it, and it stalled for a while, and I sort of lost interest. I did not like Dunbine at all. It's uh, it has a lot of characters acting illogically and stupidly, along with a lot of characters that just aren't likable. And what really kills that is that's a fantasy show, but the character designs and art style are just ugly. So that really hurts it. Haven't watched Indion or Zabungle. I can't actually think of too many other Tomino shows I've watched. I really feel like overall, I mean, Ideon's considered pretty darn good, so I'd have to see that. But I feel like most of his good shows are actually inside of Gundam, and that he was more wildly experimenting with other shows, and that didn't always turn out. But that's my impression.
I see. I think, I think we have discussed everything. We have given our scores, best girls. Yeah. So yeah, thank you for listening all this time. By the way, Justin.
I have watched Brain Powered, which is interesting. It is so bad at explaining the plot to you. I couldn't call it a good show, but it is a very interesting show. And if you enjoy Tomino's style, or if you just enjoy hot political takes that are probably vaguely right wing, I would suggest you watch that show.
I see. So, well, thank you to Justin for listening to us ramble on about a lot of stuff other than Char's Counterattack. But we did talk about Char's Counterattack too, right? I think. Can you think of anything else?
No, I think we're good.
Right. Okay, then I'll stop streaming and